All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start out this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone that rule well, that teach well while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. Also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophets, servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth. And shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere, and your children, shalom. And in today's video is going to be another update video from NY Prepper. You got a lot of different types of, situations occurring around the world as far as with this war that's transpiring. The Russia and Ukraine situation is getting worse by the day. You got Iran that allegedly just tested a nuclear weapon. So, you got things heating up, brothers and sisters. So I'm going to get into this video so we can basically hear what it is he's saying. And I'm going to get a few precepts, and Lord's willing to be edifying. Just a quick little update. But all right, before I start this video, I want to say fair use under 1976 Copyright Act. Not getting paid for this video. This is only for educational purposes only.
Here, aka NY Prepper. It is Monday, June 9th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 15:49 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Russia and from Iran. Before I get into all that, I want to just show you what we have going on over the U.S. right now. We currently have 2 nuke sniffer planes airborne over the central and northern plains. We have one that was flying very low over Nebraska and South Dakota. And then there was another one that was flying over North Dakota and eastern Montana. And they both came out of Offutt Air Base in Omaha, Nebraska, which is home of U.S. Strategic Command. We also have a B-52 nuclear bomber that was airborne over Kansas, came out of Barksdale. So U.S. nuclear forces are on high alert again today. And we have some major breaking news coming in from Reuters. U.S. officials expect a strong Russian strike on Ukraine within days. Reuters, citing U.S. officials, said the U.S. believes the Russian response to the Ukrainian drone attack is not over yet and anticipates a multilateral strike. The Russian response will be disproportionate to the Ukrainian operation that used drones, okay? So multilateral and disproportionate within the next couple of days, okay? This is very, very concerning. Make sure you...
Right, you hear what it is he's saying. So you got it, brothers and sisters. Things are just heating up moment by moment. Like I said, each day that passes by, things are becoming more intense with these world conflicts that are going on and things of that nature. And we know that we're living in that time. This is St. Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars, right? You got active wars that are actively, taking place as I'm speaking right now. And you have rumors of wars, which are, you having little hats over there, the Amalekites over there in the land of Israel. They're allegedly preparing to, strike Iran. And we know that they will, because it's ultimately all a part of prophecy. So you got all of these different types of things taking place at one time, right? And it says, see that ye be not troubled, right? For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet, right? And we know ultimately, the end won't ultimately occur until, that MOTB CHIP is made mandatory. So once that hits the scene, then that's when World War III will officially, turn nuclear. Once that chip is, mandated across the world, according to prophecy. But, still, World War III is heating up, man, spiking day by day. Things are constantly getting worse, right allegedly after Trump was allegedly talking about his peace talks, and things of that nature. But we know the Lord said that peace will not come to this place, man, and I'm going to go to a precept just touching on that, because a lot of people thinking that the world is going to get better, that all of these things that are happening are not going to evolve into something bigger. These people are just completely oblivious to what time it is, the season that we're in, man. Mainly these people over here in America, Babylon the Great, man, these 2/3 and these other heathens, man, these people have no idea what time we're living in, man, and that these things are about to go hot. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. I'm going to start at verse 3. It said, for when they shall say peace and safety, right, which is what you got a lot of people believing right now, man. You got Donald Trump, telling all of the people in the world that, You know, there's going to be peace talks, and, you know, he's going to bring everything back together. You know, things are going to get normal. All of these conflicts that are happening are ultimately going to be resolved and dealt with, and all of these different types of things. So, you know, that's ultimately what he's telling these people here in America, Babylon the Great, man. So all of these people are in a state of security. They're thinking that they're safe, even though everything around them is basically telling them the opposite. But these people are so in denial that they believe that this place is going to get back better and that the world is going to get back better, all because this man Donald Trump is telling them these things, right? It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And that's what's going to happen, man, in the near future, man. You know, it could be today, it could be tomorrow. I mean, we don't know when the Lord is going to allow this destruction to come forth, but we know it's coming quickly, you know, ultimately through all of the signs that we see occurring in the earth, how these nations are ultimately fighting against each other, you know, and things of that nature. You know, stuff is not getting better. It's just continuing to get worse. You know, all of this is leading towards World War III, man. You know, to this nuclear war that's going to happen. You know, that's why you got America's nuclear forces on high alert. That's why you got Iran testing nuclear missiles at this time, you know, because the Lord is preparing these nations for the fight, man. You know, so I'm going to get back into the video.
Guys are getting prepared, because I do believe we could see mushroom clouds over Ukraine in the coming days, if not at some point in the near future. And the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Ukrainians need to pay particular attention to air raid sirens this week. And Trump had a meeting with his top generals and commanders at Camp David last night. White House officials said that he changed his plans to go home and instead went to Camp David to meet with high-ranking military officials. Guys, that is very, very ominous.
All right. Because ultimately we know that World War III is coming, and that's what these leaders know. That's what Trump knows. That's what Putin knows. That's what all these different leaders around the world knows, man. Though they're trying to paint the picture to you people that, you know, peace is coming and all of these different types of things. But they know that, you know, these wars are coming, man. You know, and that's why you see all these countries preparing for it. That's why you see Trump. He just came out with a nuclear threat, I believe, yesterday. You know, he basically threatened to nuke Iran and things of that nature. So I believe, you know, these things are coming, man. You know, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just a matter of when they'll take place. But we know it's coming, man, you know, and it's coming quickly. And these countries and these nations know that, you know, ultimately that's why they're preparing. That's why they're getting ready. That's why they're arming up their missiles. You know, getting everything prepared and in place so that when this stuff does go hot, that they can already be equipped, man, you know. And that's the spirit of the Lord that he's putting on these nations, man. He's the one controlling the minds of these leaders, these kings, right, to get ready to arm themselves up to basically to go down there to that Middle East where they can all fight against each other, as it tells you in Joel 3:9, you know. So I'm going to get back into the video.
We know that Trump doesn't like to go to Camp David. He never goes there, especially on a Sunday night. So something happened last night that prompted Trump to go to Camp David. Now, what's interesting is we had an Israeli Air Force plane fly over the U.S., and it was communicating on our primary nuclear war frequency and doing radio checks with U.S. Strategic Command on the primary nuclear war frequency. It went from L.A. to Delaware, and it actually...
Right, and that just proves to you that these little hats are going to ultimately drag America into this war, man. Because as you can see, mind you, what is an Israeli plane? We know that ultimately the little hats control America. We know that, but what is an Israeli plane doing in American shores over American waters and things of that nature, flying their jets, man, communicating with their nuclear bombers and planes and things of that nature? That's because ultimately those little hats are ultimately getting ready to attack Iran, man, which we know that's a part of prophecy. We don't know when it's going to take place, but we know it's going to happen soon, man, because we see everything building up to that happening. Then, you just had Iran that just ultimately, detonated a nuclear weapon, man, allegedly, from what they say, so if we see those things happening, we know that these Israelis are ultimately getting ready with the help of America, the whore, because we know America is going to be pulled into it as well. to ultimately attack Iran, man. And I'm going to go to this precept. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 45, because this is what time we're about to step into, man. This is what's about to happen real soon. It said, therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, that he have taken against Babylon, and his purposes that he have purposed against the land of the Chaldeans, right? Surely the least of the flock, right? That's talking about those little hats over there, right? Those ones that are getting prepared to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, right? Shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them, man. Because guess what? They're going to be ultimately the ones that's going to really kick World War III off, man, when they attack Iran. And it's going to pull the United States and, everybody else into this conflict, man. And that's what's happening, and that's what we see everything ultimately building up towards, So I'm going to get this precept right here. This is Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. And it says, the second woe is past. And behold, the third woe, right? Talking about the third world's war, which is going to be a nuclear world's war, which is going to result in the destruction of Babylon the Great America, man. Right? Cometh quickly, right? So all of these different things that we see happening, all of these different drills and practices of these different nations, going into alliances with one another's, practicing, ultimately deploying nuclear missiles and getting them ready. All of that is for this battle, man, that the Lord is ultimately about to set these nations up to fight in, right? It tells you that in the book of, I'm going to get it, I mentioned it earlier. Because this is the end, man. We're in the end. And this is what the Lord is ultimately preparing to happen, So I'm going to go to Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 9 in the KJV. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, right? These heathen nations, prepare war. And that's what we see them doing, man, from Iran to Russia to, China to Taiwan to North Korea. All of these different heathen nations are preparing to go to war with one another, right? Ultimately, they're all preparing to go to war against the whore, which is America, Babylon the Great, and the land of Israel, man, those Amalekites, right? It said, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, which is what they're going to do. They're going to march all of them down there to what they call today the Middle East, man, where they're going to meet up to fight. That's what the Lord is going to pull all of these nations to, right? Verse 10, it said, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak sound strong. And that's going into what you see happening with Iran, man. You would have never seen Iran 20, 30 years ago, or even just, 5, 10 years ago, threatening America and things of that nature that they're doing, man. But the reason they're doing these things now, because Iran is ultimately develop nuclear capabilities, and ultimately they have Russia, right, being that guard for them, that protector, as it tells you about is Ezekiel 38, that Og is going to be a guard, meaning a protector to all of these different nations, Persia and all of those different people. So we see now Iran has nuclear capabilities, man, and that's ultimately why you got all of these weak nations saying that they're strong now. Right. That's why they're threatening America. That's why they're threatening Israel. That's why they're threatening all these different people, man, because they're no longer afraid of them, because now they have advanced in their weaponry as well. Right. This is verse 11. It said, assemble yourselves and come all ye heathen. Right. Because the Lord is the one that's ultimately controlling all of these things. Right. And gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Right. Verse 12. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Right. Which in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, where the Lord is going to bring all of these nations that have fought against his people and responsible for his people's condition, right? All of those nations that it tells you about in Psalms 83 that are confederate against the Lord's people. He's going to bring all of them down to the so-called Middle East, where they're all going to fight against each other. And ultimately the Lord, Yahweh Shai, is going to return on the fathership in the middle of World War III and going to destroy those people, man, right? So this is what everything is building up towards, man. Right. So it says, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, man. So that's what's coming, man. The Lord is getting ready to judge these heathen nations. He's getting ready to judge these 2/3 in America and these other heathens over here, and to deliver his elect, man. That's what times we're about to come into, So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Lord's willing to be edifying. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom.